looked upon the apocalypse, and there stood an angel. And in his right hand he had the key to the bottomless pit, a right hand of doom. This is Hellboy II, The Golden Army. Greetings Legion and casual viewers. Yes, in spite of the fact that the first Hellboy movie was definitive and awesome, unfortunately it underperformed. So Sony lost all interest in the franchise. They dropped the live action movies as well as the animated movies. But Guillermo del Toro still kept promising that he was gonna make a Hellboy sequel, which I will admit made me want to roll my eyes. But he delivered. He shopped around the franchise to other studios, and Universal picked up the torch, and thus we did get a Hellboy sequel. Personally, I'm surprised there was one Hellboy movie, let alone two. But that's enough of the backstory. Let's get into it. What is Hellboy II: The Golden Army about? This time we delve into the realm of fairy tales, as the kingdom of magical creatures, led by King Balor, waged war on the world of man. And they were going to destroy them with a mechanical army of gold soldiers. But there was so much carnage that King Balor changed his mind. So he put the Golden Army to rest, and the only way to control it was with his crown, which he broke into 3 pieces. And his son, Prince Nuada, is sick of humanity's bullshit and has decided to reunite the 3 pieces of the crown and unleash the Golden Army. Hellboy and crew have to stop them, all the while having to deal with their usual everyday life stuff. Obviously, Guillermo del Toro learned a lot from making the first Hellboy movie and simplified the hell out of the plot. The bad guy wants to destroy the world with a mechanical army, and the good guys have to stop him. And then there's the subplots, you know, with what's happening in their love lives and all that stuff. And that's it. Just thankfully, unlike the first movie, which they overcomplicated everything, this time they kept it nice and simple and easy to digest. So good job. But what's happening with the characters? First, let's talk villain. Prince Nuada, played by Luke Goss, who you might remember from Blade 2, a far superior villain to Rasputin. Not only is he more entertaining and interesting and layered than Rasputin, but unlike Rasputin, he gets his hands dirty. He will fight Hellboy head on. In fact, the scenes where they fight are among the best in this movie, as Hellboy is a brawler. He hits things head on, he destroys everything. Nuada, on the other hand, is this disciplined, skilled fighter who employs a lot of finesse into his movements and his attacks. So the contrast between the two make them amazing and perfect adversaries. And I can't talk about Nuada without talking about his main henchman, Mr. Wink, one of the coolest creatures I've ever seen in any fantasy film. And the most mind-blowing thing about him is that he was created practically. Yes, this is a man in a suit with an animatronic face, and it looks incredible. Now let's move on to the good guys. In the previous movie, of course, they added characters that weren't there in the comics. Here, thankfully, the character that they added was actually one that was straight out of the pages of Mike Mignola's Hellboy, and that is, of course, Professor Johann Kraus, the Man of Mist. Interesting fact, the character was voiced by none other than Seth MacFarlane, creator of Family Guy. And I have to say, his voice work here is freaking hilarious and one of the best elements in the film.
Dr. Manning, suck my ectoplasmic Schwanzstocher.
Returning characters were improved even more. Their evolution is very evident. There's a recurring theme through all of them about love and the effects that that emotion has on you. We see that when Abe starts to develop a crush for the villain's sister. This, of course, leads to my all-time favorite scene in the entire franchise, where Abe is pining for her at the same time that Hellboy is having issues with Liz and their relationship. So our two heroes get drunk and start singing together. Just a couple of monsters singing a love song while drinking beer. It doesn't get better than this. A character that was fine in the original, but the improved magnificently was Liz. Personally, I was so freaking happy that they gave her a uniform and made her a full agent, having her go out and fight monsters and investigate paranormal events along with Hellboy and Abe. Why didn't they do this in the first movie? I'll never know. But I think the crown jewel of this movie beyond the action and the effects and the imagery is, of course, the relationship between Hellboy and Liz, which has moved on to the next level. They have moved in together, they are closer together. It is very apparent that Liz really does care about Hellboy and wants to spend the rest of her life with him, but to add a further wrinkle to the plot, she is now pregnant and doesn't know how to tell Hellboy that he's gonna be a dad. And of course, it's a bad guy that's about to bring about the end of all time, so she can't quite find the right moment to give him the news.
Oh my God! Liz, you're pregnant.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
So yes, everything's better. The character work is better, the story's better, the effects are even better, the action is even better. Unfortunately, they tripped right before they got to the finish line. There are a lot of issues with the climax of this movie. When they go to fight Nuada, Hellboy has been mortally wounded and the characters have to find a way to heal that wound. And they're right there at the bad guy's lair, and the chamber of the Angel of Death, the one creature in their universe that can heal Hellboy, just so happens to be located there. I just wish that they would have done something to summon the Angel of Death to save Hellboy, as opposed to him conveniently having a room in the chamber where the Golden Army was kept and Nuada's royal chamber was also located. It was just too much of a goofy ass plot convenience. Then after that, Abe gives up the one piece of the crown that Nuada was missing to be able to control the Golden Army, and he does it because he thinks Nuada is gonna hurt the princess. Okay, interesting plot point. Earlier in the movie, it is established several times that Nuada and his sister are connected. If you hurt one, the other one develops the exact same injury. So Nuada would not be able to hurt his sister without hurting himself, and if he hurts himself or kills himself via killing his sister, he wouldn't be able to control the Golden Army and destroy the world of man. End of his plan. So Abe, the smartest character in the franchise, doing something so stupid just didn't make any sense. And last but not least, and this is my final meaningless fanboy gripe, when our heroes go to fight the Golden Army, Liz and Abe do nothing. They just stand there like a couple of worthless lumps. Abe is the smartest member of the BPRD. He could have figured out a way to disarm or deactivate these mechanical beings. And Liz is the most powerful in the group. It hurts even more that she is inactive in this scene. Not just because this is the movie where they finally made her a full-fledged agent with a uniform and utility belt, but because her character arc from the beginning has always been that of her gaining more control of her powers. And we can see by the changing of her flame from blue to yellow that she has gained more control. Now, why is the color of the flame relevant? Well, for those of you who don't know, the blue part of a flame is the hottest part, meaning that in the first movie, whenever she would unleash her powers, the flame was coming out at melting temperatures, like a blowtorch. In the second movie, we immediately see that the flame is now yellow, meaning that even though sometimes she might go human torch when she is emotionally distraught, she can still control the temperature of said flame. So I was really disappointed that in this scene we didn't see just the extent of the control that she has over her powers. I would have loved to have seen her direct the flame around the room as she destroyed different members of the Golden Army. But that doesn't happen. She just stands next to Abe and together they do nothing during this scene. Thank God they let her melt the crown in the end. But like I said, these are the only really big problems, and they're at the very end. And for the most part, the climax is still really good, so you could easily ignore them and enjoy the rest of the film. My favorite scene absolutely has got to be Hellboy, Abe, and Professor Johann's venture into the troll market. It's like the Star Wars cantina scene on steroids. There's so many creatures, so many weird things to look at in this scene. It's like sensory overload. Plus, it ends with one hell of a kick-ass fight scene. So what's not to love? A good runner-up to this scene is when Hellboy fights the Colossus. I love Guillermo del Toro's idea to make the Beanstalk from Jack and the Beanstalk the giant as well. That was innovative and cool. And this is one of the most beautiful death scenes I've seen in any movie.
It's beautiful.
Now, in a perfect world, Hellboy 2 would have brought the franchise to a whole other level, broken box office records, and led to an ongoing series of Hellboy films being directed by Guillermo del Toro and starring Ron Perlman. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I hate to be a know-it-all fanboy here, but I have to kind of blame Universal on this, because they released this movie the weekend before The Dark Knight. And I love Hellboy, but there was no competing with the combined forces of Batman and the Joker. But at the same time, I'm grateful that Universal put so much effort, so much money, and so many resources into this movie. It's just the timing was really, really bad. For example, they put together a hell of a marketing campaign for this film, having Hellboy do guest spots with other famous characters from media, from the Ghost Hunters to Zachary Levi as Chuck.
Jackie!
But unfortunately, the movie underperformed, and this marked the end of Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy franchise. The last time that Ron Perlman would ever play Hellboy would appropriately be granting the request of a terminally ill child for a Make-A-Wish. I don't know this child, but the fact that his Make-A-Wish was simply to meet Hellboy makes him one of the coolest human beings on the planet. But the question remains, what would have happened in Hellboy 3, the movie that would have completed Guillermo del Toro's trilogy? Well, there's a lot of rumors out there, but the only ones that I want to entertain are the ones that came out of the mouth of Ron Perlman. According to the Pearl, the third movie would have dealt with Hellboy becoming the beast of the apocalypse, as it is stated in the prophecy, the one that brings about the end of mankind. His struggle with making the decision of being man's savior or its destroyer would have been visually established in the film through Hellboy's twin children, one of which would have been angelic and the other demonic. According to Ron Perlman, one of them was going to be tempted to join the dark side while the other would want to follow his father's footsteps. But beyond that, we know nothing about what would have been the third movie in Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy trilogy. Guillermo del Toro did say that at one point he was considering releasing this story as a comic book, but Mike Mignola vetoed this idea. And honestly, I get it. The comics are his domain, so the man has to draw the line somewhere. And before I close this out, I know a lot of you really want to know what my feelings are on the Hellboy reboot. After all, not only am I a massive fan of Hellboy and Guillermo del Toro, but Ron Perlman as well. And he is being, for the first time ever, replaced as the character. To be perfectly honest, I was pretty enraged when I found out that the next Hellboy movie would be a reboot instead of a sequel. But my rage was instantly dispelled the moment that I found out that David Harbour was playing Hellboy. Now, why is that important? Because they didn't choose the flavor of the week. They didn't choose whatever big marquee name actor is available right now. They chose an actor that's very much like Ron Perlman. He is a fan favorite, a cult favorite. An actor that has already proven that he can play this character very well. So that told me that the creators of this film really cared about the franchise as opposed to making the studio happy. Everything that I've seen connected to the movie, from teaser images to the trailer, has done nothing but make me want to look forward to it. Whether or not it'll live up to Guillermo del Toro's movies is left to be seen. One thing that I know for sure is that it will never be as visually stunning or stimulating as Guillermo del Toro's movies. One thing that I've always felt very comfortable saying about Guillermo del Toro that I can't say about hardly any director is that the man is an artist. He has an amazing eye for composition, shot design, and color that very few directors have. And with all due respect to Neil Marshall, he might be a talented director, but he does not have that. Plus, it will be interesting to finally see an R-rated Hellboy.
But this is not gonna work, you know, because I'm a Capricorn and you're fucking nuts!
In a few days, I will check it out, and me, a hardcore Hellboy fan, will let you know if it's worth your time or if it's not. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you for watching my look back at Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy. Until next time.